Hey everybody, it's your boy Dave from Sens.com. With me today as co-hosts are Nick and Brennan. We have a really special guest in the house tonight for you guys. Former NHLer and Ottawa Senator defender, Marc Methot. Mark, how's it going over there today, buddy?
Excellent. Thanks for having me, fellas. It's an honor to be a part of this.
Man,
Awesome.
it's fun watching you on social media. I don't think you never really had a filter. You were always pretty outspoken, but now since retirement, you've come out and been a little more outspoken on social media. You're not so shy like some of the other former NHLers, so it's always fun to watch you on social media. So I'm glad you accepted our invitation. Um, how are you and the family and everybody else dealing with COVID-19 and all that other stuff?
Well, first of all, thanks for the good intro there. That was nice. You know what, we're hanging in there. Obviously, I can't complain. I mean, it's not like I have to go out and find a job right now or that I'm relying on that. Whereas a lot of people, including a lot of close friends of mine, are battling with that, and certainly a couple of them that are in the service industry and whatnot. So it's been pretty rough for some people out there. But all that aside, it's just trying to stay stimulated. Like I've got two young kids, so just trying to kind of, I guess, keep it together and find a happy routine where I can fit in workouts and watch adult television occasionally that isn't anything on Netflix Kids. You know what I mean? So other than that, though, we're doing great. Everyone's healthy. We can't complain.
So you watched more than just the Christmas Chronicles and stuff like recently, because that's all I watched, man.
There's
That's
some
it.
of them I don't mind, like Polar Express. I really like, but it's a little dark for a 3-year-old, I think. But there's like we watch all the cliche stuff too, like Christmas Vacation and whatnot. But it's like I said, with the kids, it's like you guys, well, some of you know, I'm sure they rule you for the first couple of years. It's a lot of work. It can be challenging, but it's the best thing in the world. So it is what it is.
Yep.
For sure. So what's a day in the modern Marc Methot era look like right now?
I don't know if I want to share that with
No?
you guys.
We're not ready for that behind the scenes content.
I get up usually right away. I'm the first one up, and I'll get up with the two kids. My wife battled through dealing with a lot of the night stuff when I was still playing a couple of years ago. So I'm doing the morning stuff now, which is fine because I'm a morning guy anyway. So I get up around like 6:30 and hang out with the kids roughly till noon, 12:30, like all morning. And then they'll usually nap for about 2 hours. And that's when I'm already ready to go. I go down into the basement just behind me over there. There's a gym, and I do all my work in there and sauna. And I spend about 2 hours down there every day. And I feel like for me, especially not working, it's just really good stimulation, and it keeps me kind of with it. So I do that. And then I guess the next thing I look forward to is dinner, and I like to cook. So I usually cook almost all the time exclusively. And I look forward to that. And it's really, really monotonous, but I'm hoping that once COVID passes, I can start get into some coaching or something.
Yeah. You've kind of transitioned from a stay-at-home defenseman to a stay-at-home dad. And it's a good mix. I like it.
Nice.
So I got the first question here for you. So thinking of your tenure in Ottawa, it's hard not to think of your meat and potatoes kind of stay-at-home defense partner, Erik Karlsson, obviously. So I guess my big question is, I'm wondering what it was like to play on the ice with Erik on an every night basis, especially during that 2016 season when he was arguably the best player in the league. Like, what was it like to witness that and just be a part of that? And kind of like, how did you factor into that? And what did you think kind of led to a lot of his on ice success and your success as a whole, as a team and as a unit?
Yeah. When I first got to Ottawa, I'd known enough about him, obviously, just because he was a superstar at this point already. And I know that they were looking for a new partner for him. And so I feel like I kind of put that pressure on myself right away, which maybe was not the smartest thing to do, but I did it anyway. And I came into camp with the frame of mind that I was going to play with this young guy, but I didn't know anything about him. So as camp progressed, I got to know him a little bit. The key takeaways for me was his confidence. His competitive level on the ice was outstanding. I mean, not a kind of guy, like very naturally fit, but not the kind of guy that's going to go in the weight room and just dunk everybody under the table and all the fitness testing. But again, like I said, a freak of nature nonetheless. And from playing with him over those years, it was just, I mean, like I said, at first I was a little nervous, didn't know much about it. I didn't want to let him down or the team down. because all my job was to do really was to defend him, right, and make sure I covered over for him. But Erik was such a dynamic skater that he could get himself out of trouble, even if he was pinching. You knew that he was going to get back eventually, so that took pressure off of me. But on the bench, extremely vocal, sometimes maybe too vocal. You know, he and I would get into some big FU matches sometimes because he'd come off the ice and say something to me like, Meth, you got to pass me that on the blue line or something like that. And then I'd rebut back saying like, dude, I'm not Paul Coffey. Like I can't read the ice like Paul fucking Coffey here. Pardon my French. So, you know, we butt heads eventually after a while, because you know, when you're around the same guys all the time, it is what it is, right? You get competitive and you get comfortable and you start to fight like brothers occasionally. But I think that's what made our chemistry so strong and made us such a successful pairing.
That's awesome. And I think it's pretty obvious that you guys had a lot of success. You ask any Sens fans, I think that's the most famous pairing in history, I think, if people will point out. So it's just really awesome to see you have such a good time and playing with such a talented player. And as yourself, you know, you're talented as well. But my next question, I just wanted to ask you, because you're obviously from Ottawa. And so you didn't start your career in Ottawa. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on, you know, the whole process of moving here and what it meant for you to play in Ottawa, and your initial reaction to hearing you were traded here.
Yeah, it's a funny story. I was at home. I was living in Mooney's Bay area here in South Ottawa in the city, and I had a house there, but I was on my own at the time. And it was on Canada Day, and that was free agency, right?
Oh.
And
right.
So Canada Day's rolling around, and I'm having this get together. I guess it was a party. There's like 40 people coming to my house, and we were going to have it in the backyard on the patio. And I had a DJ coming by too. And
it's a bad dad.
Anyway, long story short, we're scanning the TV before people start rolling in. And I think Broussard or someone was over at the house at the time before everybody came over, or maybe it was my brother. I don't remember. But I remember watching the ticker on TSN, and there was a reporter out of Columbus that said that after we had drafted, what was his name? Was it that Murray, that young Murray kid on defense? He's like, Marc Methot is now expendable or something like that. And I thought, oh God, like I didn't take offense to it. I was surprised, you know, I didn't think I was going anywhere. And so time's kind of ticking by, and eventually the party just gets started. And at this point, it's like 1:30, I think, in the afternoon. And I checked Twitter, and Bob McKenzie tweets out that the deal between Columbus and Ottawa is done. So right away, my heart sinks into my stomach, because I'm like, oh my God, like I loved Columbus and I loved everything about it, but to play in your hometown is another animal. And I was so excited. So sure as shit, I look at my phone and I see that Methot for Foligno had been confirmed. And I was like elated. And, but I found out that way before a GM called me or a coach or anybody. So,
wow.
So I'm like, do I keep drinking, or do I wait? What do I do? And then I think Brian Murray called me first. We had a really good conversation together. And then finally Scott Housen from Columbus called me and it confirmed after the fact. But anyway, it's one of the best days of my life. I still remember how I felt that day in the moment, and it was incredible. And if I could go back and relive that day again, I would in a heartbeat.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think one of the most famous moments in your tenure in Ottawa was the chop to the hand by Sid the Kid. So two things.
What does that say about my career anyway?
but your career was, people always remember the crazy, right? Not the good, the crazy. So like, and everyone just has that picture of you skating by and your finger just dangling, right? So that's kind of, first off, do you still have full mobility of the finger? And two, have you talked to Sid since? Like, have you guys made peace, or like, do you have like a troll account that you like send them like stuff like that? Like
a burner account?
No, so after the fact, after it happened, first of all, my fingers, it's still not even close to my good one. I mean, I don't have full sensation there. I mean, it's like all the nerve endings haven't completely recovered. I don't know if they ever will, but it kind of looks like more of a stub than my good one. But you wouldn't really, you know, to any random person walking by, they probably wouldn't think anything of it if they saw it. It healed very well. The doctors did a good job with it. But Sidney, I got along well with him when we met at the World, where was it? The Olympic camp in Calgary. I was invited to the preliminary camp where there was like 20 defensemen or whatever it was, and X amount of forwards. And I got to sit with him at one of the dinners, and we had a good chat. We were talking. This is well before, obviously. And then, so we always got along fine. And what he did on the ice wasn't malicious. It was a slash, but he wasn't intending on chopping my finger off, right? So. But he reached out to me about a week after the fact when it did happen, and it was a text. But at that point, I was so angry and resentful that I never replied to him. I regret that. I was in so much friggin' pain every night, like day to day. It was an unrelenting pain. I've had broken my jaw. I've had back pains. I've had tons of lacerations all over my face. I've lost teeth. But this is one of the most painful injuries I think I've ever had. And so he reaches out to me a week after, and in the moment I'm thinking, why did he wait a week to reach out to me? Not that he had any reason to have to do that. I wasn't expecting it, but nonetheless, I was going through a lot of shit at the time. I was pissed off, and it was about a month before playoffs, so I had that to look forward to with a broken hand. But it was an accident, and stuff happens, and I moved on from it.
So, like, why don't you pick up your phone now and reply to that specific text? You're like, I'm good. I'm good. Don't worry about it, man.
You know what? I've thought about it, but I mean,
it would be
I'm a complete pigeon in the grand scheme of things when it comes to Sidney's world and what he knows and does. So I'm for sure an afterthought at this point for him, and that's fine. But I don't plan on writing back to him. It's all good.
He's done a lot to Senators fans over the years, like playoffs and stuff like that. But he's hated by us because of what he did to your finger. Like, that is, someone asked me, why don't you like Crosby? And I go, have you not seen the video of Mark skating with his finger? What do you mean, why do I hate Crosby?
Yeah, it was a little. It's all, like I said though. Like I don't want to sound dramatic. It's over with. I'm good with it now. I'm at peace with it. I can sleep at night now knowing that I'll be okay.
Awesome.
Might not be able to grip a pencil, but that's okay.
Thank God it's my left hand, right?
There you go. We all got one. All right, so moving on a bit. So I grew up as a Kitchener Ranger fan, living here, and the first time I got to see you play was when you were actually playing for the London Knights, on that iconic team that had Corey Perry, Robbie Schremp.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess a whole lot of other guys I could list off here, but if I believe you guys won a Memorial Cup that year, and I guess I was just curious if you could kind of take us through that experience, and then I'm also curious what it was like to be under Dale Hunter, and I was wondering if you have any stories about that, and like just what it was like in those really important development years of your life to be a part of his team.
I was drafted by London in 2002, I think, or no, 2001 maybe. God, I don't even remember, but my first year was in 2003, and I played 3 years in London. And Dale drafted me. In that draft year, we had quite a few guys. I mean, I can try to name drop, but half of them people wouldn't even remember anyway. I don't think so. But we had there was about 6 NHL draft picks alone. My draft year that was drafted by London, and in that itself was amazing. So we had a very deep team, and there were other guys. We had Dan Girardi, David Bolin, Brandon Prust, Drew Larman, who was also a draft pick at the time and played a little bit in the NHL. And I'm trying to think of other guys. Our goaltender was drafted. The list went on. So we had a really deep team. And Dale, as a coach, who was my head coach at the time, very intimidating, but like a player's guy. Wasn't a screamer, very quiet. Didn't have to scream because everyone was scared shitless of him, right? It was Dale Hunter. And the kind of guy, it's funny. I remember we all went to his house one day for a team party, and the kind of guy that had a stationary bicycle in his sauna. And I mean, I'm a sauna guy. I use it every day. I'm religious about it. This guy had the psycho, had a stationary bike in a sauna. And all the old school guys like Chelios, you've heard stories, or at least I have, of him sweating it out with like a garbage bag over him in a sauna. So Dale was that kind of guy. He was very old school. Built like a truck, like this refrigerator. He had these calves on him, like they were this big. And
Nicholson.
Yeah, and like I appreciated it, because I'm thinking I'm this young player getting in there, and I'm a little beanpole, and I'm looking at this ex-NHL player who's been through the ringer, and but nothing but respect for him. He's extremely professional, and what they did in London was great. They created a pro-style environment that was the best type of setup for any player that was planning on, progressing as a professional. So we were very fortunate there. And at the time when I joined, that was the first year of the John Labatt Center, which was their brand new building downtown in London, Ontario, as opposed to the old truck stop ice house that they had prior to me getting there. So everything just kind of aligned at the right time. It was pretty incredible. And then I won't get into it for too long, but with the Mem Cup, we got the chance to play against Sidney Crosby that year. And Shea Weber was also in it with Kelowna, I believe, at the time. And so there were some pretty good players involved in the tournament, and some close games too. And what an experience, because it was the NHL lockout that year. So everything was just magnified, right? Like we had a lot of people in town, a lot of scouts, a lot of national press, and it made the experience incredible. And I mean, probably the highlight of my life as far as hockey goes. I mean, and there are a lot of really cool NHL experiences that I've had, but nothing tops that.
Yeah.
Awesome. And another team that you obviously played for that was really successful is the team that went to the Eastern Conference Finals in 2017. Obviously, we all know how that went down, losing in double overtime against Pittsburgh. I did double check. You weren't on the ice, so that's probably why we lost. But I just want to ask you, what was your fondest memory of that run? And, how close were the guys in the locker room? And was there like a sort of an energy that came with you guys, and just a belief that you guys could go far?
We were so tight, and they'd brought in a bunch of good veterans as well to help out. And I hate doing this because I always forget guys, but Dion was a big one for us. With Phaneuf, he was such a gregarious kind of presence in the room, and he was almost to the point where it was like cartoonish, like it was like he was just such a motivator, and he wasn't shy to call guys out, and he wasn't shy to like speak his mind in the room, and loved being around the guys and loved having beers with the guys. Like just a great guy to have. And I hated him prior. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say that. I didn't hate him, but one of my first NHL fights was against Dion. He was in Calgary and he folded Umberger from behind, and I had to jump him. And we'd still laugh about that. But I got a chance to play with Dion at the World Championships prior to him getting traded to Ottawa. So at this point, I was already pretty close with him. And beyond Dion, we had guys like Stallberg and a lot of veterans that were already there in place, like MacArthur and other guys. So we had a really solid base and a good system. Like we had a great system that we were playing there. I know that it got criticized quite a bit, but after the fact, perhaps, the following year, but it worked really well for us. And that lefty lock that we were playing with, like me, Burrow, and Dion on the left side, it was like perfect. It was catered to our team. So a lot of good experience that year. And I think, in the moment, you don't really appreciate what's going on. We're in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Final, 1 goal away. And in that moment, you're not thinking about anything. You're completely zoned into the game. And it ends, and then you're just shocked. You're in shock. Some guys are, breaking down a little bit in the room after, because you have a good inkling that you may not get an opportunity ever again to be in that position, to make it that far. So, a lot of guys put a lot into this, and it can get pretty rough sometimes when you're let down, and that's part of the game.
I was in Hawaii for the first 2 series of that.
Awesome.
And I managed to get a trip to Hawaii paid for. It was a long story, but I ended up watching the first 2, the Boston and the Rangers series, poolside in Hawaii, and there was this little mat to dry your feet on before you go into the house.
Yeah.
And I stood there for 3 hours because whenever I stood on there, we won. So I'm not kidding.
That's awesome.
The wife has pictures of me standing there in videos watching the game from that little 2x2 mat, watching you guys play. So
I respect it.
Did taking credit for the win series. It's all because everyone is mad.
So it's I'm gonna assume obviously you're still a Sens fan. You live in the city. Do you follow the organization and what's going on and all that other stuff? And you still talk to guys on the teams and stuff still?
Yeah, well, the first question to touch on the Sens, I don't watch a ton of hockey right now. The kids go down at like 7:30, 8 o'clock. and I have about an hour and a half before I go to bed, and it's like I just don't have time. So I might watch a show on Netflix, and I just go to bed. So I follow a lot in the morning. I'll watch the highlights. I follow everything online on my phone. I check the stats out, see what the media guys are saying about certain players. I still talk to a lot of guys. I still talk to Mark Stone and Derek Brassard quite a bit. I was talking to Dzingel the other day. A bunch of guys actually reached out to me after what was I tweeting about? I wrote something pretty controversial online. I forget what it was about. I think it was about outdoor rinks or something. And I got whatever it was. Anyway, but a bunch of guys reached back out to me and kind of initiated a little conversation. But I think that's what I miss the most, right? It's just the banter, being around with the guys on the road, going to dinner the night before the game, and then going back to my room and watching a movie in the room and going to bed. Like, those are the little things that you never really appreciated at the time. And God, if I could keep playing and be able to experience that again, it'd be unbelievable. But, aside from all that, yeah, I mean, those guys are all doing great. They've all moved on. It's pretty incredible that almost the entire team now from 2017 isn't, it's non-existent. So a lot has changed.
Well, speaking of the change, like you obviously, like I said, you're getting the updates on your phone, stuff like that. Is there anything that you've seen the Sens do that you're like, man, that's a really good move, or man, that's a really bad move, stuff like that? Any players that you kind of fancy right now or anything?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like, I like them bringing in Goodbranson. It'll be interesting to see. I didn't pay much attention to him last year or the year before, so I don't know where his game's at. But I think having a tougher presence back there just to steady things up a little bit, especially with the younger group on D, won't hurt. And I'm sure that goes against what a lot of people want to hear, but I think having at least one guy is important. And then you got that Stützle. I was watching Stützle in the World Juniors and pretty impressed with him, man. Like, a guy that age, just mature beyond his years hockey-wise. And I think the fans are – I don't want to go too far because I feel like we've already put so much pressure on this kid because there's nothing else to talk about. So Twitter was blowing up there for about 2 weeks all about him, and now he's finally at camp. And I hope people can understand that, there will be growing pains, I'm sure, with young guys like him and with the rest of the team too, right? So, but other than that, like – I'm kind of fresh here. I got to start paying attention and watching them. I mean, usually with training camp, there's a little more news. It's a little longer. You can watch exhibition games and get a feel for where everyone's at. But this is a new dynamic now. Like, it's just like throwing all these guys into the fire and seeing what they can do.
Yeah.
So you
can go. Oh, I was just going to say, though, it's funny that you bring up Goodbranson because a lot of people sort of compare him to, the situation when we brought you in Ottawa, another Ottawa guy, obviously a stay-at-home defense and can play the physical side. And a lot of people are saying, you know what, he could probably be Shabbat's new partner and sort of pull strains from the Karlsson and Methot pairing. So it's really cool to sort of see that come to fruition. And I just wanted to point that out real quick.
Yeah, no, I've read that too. I think someone tagged me in one of those posts online, and I wish Goody all the best. He's a good guy. And with Shabby now coming into his own, and guys like him now at his age aren't necessarily the young guys anymore, right? I mean, the way the NHL is kind of trending, he's likely going to be in his prime pretty soon. So the timing of it is really good. And I like that the Sens brought in someone to kind of back him up a little bit and provide a little bit of support. So yeah, I'm like you guys. I'll be a fan here, and I'm going to be watching and hoping they do well because, I mean, God, I think everyone needs this right now. It's pretty lonely times without hockey.
For sure. I guess touching on that a bit, you miss being around the boys, you miss being in the rink, and you clearly are still in prime shape right now, the way that your biceps are popping out. So what, I guess at this point, you still haven't technically retired, have you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess you know what? First of all, I didn't want the attention. I didn't want to have to wait like a year later and then be like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm done playing now. It just didn't feel right. So I just wanted to go away kind of quietly and gracefully. And, but yeah, I'm done. I mean, I tried coming back before last season. I had been skating at Minto Arena in Ottawa. I was renting the ice to myself and trying to work through it. Could I have managed? Maybe. I'm sure I could have made a team, I think, if I'd pushed it enough, but it just wasn't worth it to put myself in that kind of position where I might potentially make my knee much worse. And I mean, right now I can still play with my kids. I can still run up and down the slopes at Mooney's Bay and push my kid on the toboggan. And I mean, I don't know if I'd be able to do that had I kept on for another year or two. So I think I made the right call. It was very difficult for me, but I think I made the right decision.
So I guess my next question, kind of on that note, then, do you see yourself potentially down the road, maybe looking at a career in hockey? Like, I think right now it kind of seems like you're really just enjoying taking advantage of the things that you didn't really get to do as much when you were on the road, and
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I think that that's really important. You have young kids, and to have that as a primary focus is extremely respectable. But I think that on top of, so yeah, honestly, like, kudos to you for that. But on top of that, I mean, you seem like the kind of guy that you just love that environment. You love being around that, and I'm sure like you're successful in it. You see the game well. You have great hockey sense. Is that something that you could see yourself being interested in, whether it's coaching, scouting, or something like that down the road? And what do you think would be ideal for Marc Methot?
Yeah, no, I've thought about it. I mean, guys like myself, guys that have played, especially in a position where I never went to university after junior, right? I jumped right into pro hockey, so I don't have nothing really else to fall back on. Not that I need that, but as far as stimulating my mind, which I believe is incredibly important. I mean, I'm 35. I can't sit around every day for the next 25 years, right? So I got to find something to do. And if there's anything I can do with my resume, it's hockey related, right? So at some point when this nightmare clears up and things kind of get back to normal, I'd like to probably hit up a coach's clinic. I'm going to have to, because it's regulation for coaching at any level. And so that's about a weekend course, I think. And I'd like to start off kind of small and do like the local like AAA teams or something, and just kind of get my feet wet there. Because once you get into junior and pro, the travel's crazy. And from my experience with coaches, and a lot of people don't realize that, coaching staff, at the professional level, they're there from like 7 a.m. until about 4, 5, 6 in the afternoon, usually in the evening, and it's every single day, and the weekends included. So it's very time consuming, is essentially what I'm getting at. Whereas I think if I start off small with maybe minor hockey, I can kind of see if I like it or not. And as far as scouting goes, completely out of the question. You couldn't pay me enough money to do that. I have so much respect for those guys, but it's the travel and the driving. It's just not for me. So we'll see. I don't know what it's going to look like, but at some point I got to get back to doing something.
I was going to say that the TSN 1200 guys might bring you on, because I know you're a reoccurring guest on there and they quite love you. And so that's also a choice, I think.
And I'd love to do that. And I've talked to them before about it, and kudos to them, because they're always very professional with me. But, and it's not necessarily just up to me that we need a spot available, but at the same time, that requires me to watch a ton of hockey and a ton of sports in general, which I have a hard enough time as it is following my local team. So I love getting on the radio and just talking, but I have to bring something to the table. And if I have absolutely zero knowledge about the teams, I'm not very useful. So we'll see.
All right. So I'll go ahead with my last question. This is actually something I'm curious about, because you didn't wear a visor, I think, for your whole career. So I was just wondering, it never crossed your mind to just want to put a visor one time after taking a stick to the face or anything?
Man, yeah. So when I came into pro, stay-at-home D-men never wore visors. You just didn't do it. And if you did, you're basically called a pussy. So I'm like, okay, I guess I can't wear a visor. So, and it's not like I was overly tough or anything. I just wanted to, you got to fit in, you got to make your mark. So it started that way. And once I started doing that, you get used to not wearing one and you get more comfortable with it. So from then on, it just became a habit. I couldn't wear one. I hated coming off the ice after every shift and wiping sweat off the visor, right? My mom pleaded with me for years to put one on. I think for about 5 or 6 games in the American League in my 3rd year, or maybe it was in the NHL level. No, in Columbus, sorry. My first year in Columbus, I think toward the end of the season, I put one on for a couple games. Couldn't do it, took it off. If I could tell my kids how to do it, I would make sure they wore one. Because some of the injuries I've had still affect me. I've broken my nose a couple times, so I have brutal sleep apnea. I've broken my jaw. I don't think a visor would have helped there, but all the lacerations around my eyes and nose, it's not fun. So I don't encourage kids to do that. I don't even think they're allowed to do it anymore. So it's a non-issue.
So just to kind of touch back on the TSN thing, all I'm saying is I have no problem creating a YouTube show called The Method with Meth. If you want to come on, once a month, man, just saying.
Yeah, hey, for sure. I'm down. I'm not even just saying that. I'd love to. Nothing else to do.
Exactly. I'll send you a tweet on that. Don't worry.
Sounds good.
So and for me to finish up, I want to ask you. We do a thing called story time. Is there story that stands out to you, like something funny or something crazy? Hotel room on the road, the locker room on the ice, just anything that's not the dangling finger. Do you have
Oh God.
something that never hit the media, or something that just wasn't talked about? Just give us some juicy.
I remember an old story. Well, I hate throwing a guy under the bus here, but I was a call up, and I was playing with Columbus at the time, and we were in Colorado, and we were on the ice, and Laperriere, there was a loose puck around the net, and instead of me running to him and basically cross-checking him as hard as I could to clear him out, I tried to get him, but with my hands or whatever it was, and he jammed the puck in, and they scored. And we had Adam Foote at the time was still playing, and he was our captain, and he was sitting beside me in the dressing room. So I'm sitting there, in the intermission. And I think it was Claude Noel. I hate saying this because Claude, more or less, I get along great with him, but he was a competitive coach. Came in the room and screamed at me in front of the entire team, to do something. And, you got to get that, effing guy out of the way. You got to crush it, whatever it was. But it was, he embarrassed me, but nothing I wasn't used to at the time. That was pretty normal then. You don't see that kind of stuff anymore, but it still happens occasionally. But anyway, Adam Foote, right in front of our coach, as he was just walking away, was like, "Hey, Meth, I'm not. Can I swear on this podcast? Probably not."
We'll beep it out if we have.
Okay, yeah. So Footer looks over at me. I still remember this because I looked up to him at the time, right? And he goes, "Meth, fuck that guy. Don't listen to him. He has no idea what he's talking about." And Claude was still walking away, and it made me feel good because he had my back. It's not like, and again, no, I had no ill feelings towards Claude, and that was a good way for coaches sometimes to liven up the dressing room. So again, I'm not trying to call him out, but that was a prime example of a young guy in the league where you have this grizzled old veteran who wasn't shy to speak up and defend his teammate, and that's what you look for in captains, right? And that's the kind of behavior you expect from your captain. So that's something that kind of still sticks with me. I've got a lot of other stories, but maybe one day if I'm drinking some beers with you guys, they'll come out. But I kind of keep them inside.
If we do the method with Meth, I'll send you a 12-pack before, man.
The method.
Man. So that pretty much concludes what we have for today, man. I really want to thank you for your time, the cool stories. You were one of the most energetic guys on Twitter. And Ottawa Senator player, that I really wanted to get on the show. So when you're like, yeah, man, I'll come on, I was really excited to just stay with the rest of the boys. So again, thanks for your time. As for our listeners and viewers, if you like this video, click the like button and don't forget to subscribe. Have a good night, guys.